My name is Christy Kennedy. I am the Director of Alumni Leadership and Career Engagement here at Smith. I am also a first gen Smith alum, class of 2010, and I lead the Alum Career Program. The Alum Career Program is a program that really is designed to meet all of our alums where you are in your professional life, in your career journey, at any stage. We're really looking to offer responsive programming like this that will provide you with skills that just make you feel confident and give you resources that you need to advance yourself in your professional life, whatever that means to you. Um, we're also here together because the Smith Alum Network is a powerful resource. So these moments provide us with an opportunity to connect back to that resource that we all have access to. And then being first gen alums in the room together is just that added layer of connectivity. So I really would encourage you, and our program is designed to encourage you to stay connected through the Smith Network platform. Explore the resources we have available in our career hub for all of you, and keep joining us for workshops and webinars and live events year round. Our website, which we'll drop in the chat, and Emma just did that, has information about our upcoming events. I am also thrilled to be co-presenting today's session with our alum cohort engagement team, and my colleague Daisy Pereira Tosado leads the program and is joining us on the call today. So Daisy, if you want to wave from your window. So the cohort engagement team curates engagement opportunities based on regions, identity, and affinity. They are here to keep you connected to each other and to Smith around topics that are meaningful to you. And today we're here to talk about money, a topic that is meaningful to many. We are demystifying financial literacy, but specifically within a first gen context. This topic is a follow-up session to a session that was offered last year and hosted by Layla. And folks on that call let us know that you wanted more first gen content and that financial literacy was high on the list of skills we could support you in building. So that's what we're here to do together today. Our hope is that you leave our session today with greater clarity, some practical strategies you can act on, and confidence to access tools and knowledge needed to build long-term financial security. This is a judgment-free space, and we're so glad you're a part of the conversation. We will start off the session with a brief presentation from Ka'Neda Bullock, who is here on the call with us, presenting tactical information you can apply, and then we'll move into a discussion between our two hosts, answering some of the common themes and questions that arose from all of you when you registered for the workshop. Then we'll open it up for additional questions that you may have after you've heard some of the information that we have to share with you today. And speaking of our hosts, I'm going to tell you a little bit about both of them. We're so lucky to have Layla and Ka'Neda here with us today. Ka'Neda, class of '06, is a certified financial planner, MBA, and the founder and president of Master Plan Investment Group. An award-winning wealth manager and retirement plan advisor, she partners with individuals, business owners, and organizations to clarify financial goals, build long-term wealth, and plan for retirement with confidence. Ka'Neda has built her business on her transparent, values-driven approach to financial planning and her passion for expanding access to financial education. She is a Smith College alum, former member of the Smith Board of Trustees, a current member of the Smith Industry Leaders Council, and a sought-after speaker on investing, retirement, and financial literacy. She is joined today by Layla Ramirez, class of '09, the founder and CEO of First Ones Collective, a firm dedicated to elevating and supporting first-generation professionals. With over a decade of experience leading global DEIB initiatives and coaching C-suite leaders, she has worked with organizations including Amazon Web Services, Netflix, Danaher, and Management Leadership for Tomorrow. A certified coach and first-generation college and business school graduate, Layla is known for her whole-person approach, asking the questions that help leaders define success on their own terms and move forward with clarity and confidence. Layla is also a member of our Alum Career Coaches team and is available to support folks in a one-on-one capacity. And I'll share a little bit more about that at the end of our session today. So, with that, we are in very good hands for today's conversation. And I am going to turn it over to Ka'Neda, who will get us started with a presentation.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. And in my part of town, it's afternoon, so good afternoon. And I'm really appreciative of the invitation. Happy to be here. I'll share my screen in a second, but first wanted to just take a moment to pause and recognize that everyone in this room is committed to something often we are excluded from, talking about money, talking about how to build wealth, discussing what that means to us, right? Defining the importance of wealth. Is it a vehicle? Is it a tool? So, first, just want to make sure, as I'm giving you a lot of great information, that we reflect on what do we do with this? Because it's not as if we can ask an AI tool to give us a financial plan, but it's much more than that. We want to really redefine what money means to us, become comfortable talking about it, and recognize it's a resource. Philanthropic goals help fund nonprofit initiatives that change the communities in which we live. So I really want us to kind of shed that more stuffy, very formal thought about money and making money and growing money and take some time to redefine that for ourselves. And it's going to be different for everyone in this virtual room and those that'll listen later to the recording. But I feel that once we do that, we will all become more comfortable with these discussions and have a different command that it takes to learn more about the topic. So, again, glad to see everyone here. This is a topic I'm obviously very passionate about. I love talking about building wealth and money and investing in stocks, but recognize that when I attended Smith, I did not know much of this at all, at all. So, to have been introduced to the industry by a trustee member, Janet McKinley, in my sophomore year at Smith. It transformed my life. So it's truly something that it's not too late to learn, and you can definitely not only build this as a skill to help you and your family, but it's never too late to have this as a career of your own as well. So, a little bit about myself. I won't read through all these credentials, but what's important to me, and I recently made a video for some marketing I'm doing, there's less than 29, really it's 26% of women that are certified financial planners. That means that's one of the highest designations for investment advisors. I have all of my investment license and stock trading, etc. But a CFP has a different perspective. We're looking at all facets of your financial picture. Of the 20 or so, 25%, let's say, of women CFPs, there's only 2% that are women of color. So when I think about those staggering statistics, the gap of not just of wealth gap, but the gap of saving and investing for retirement, investing in different investment vehicles, I understand that because we are too underrepresented in the industry. And often when you see that, there are gaps in participation. I am committed to changing those numbers. So if anyone is interested or knows someone that is interested in this path, please connect with me. I'm a part of my community in different ways on different nonprofit boards, but it's really important to become more familiar and comfortable with investing. And it's not just budgeting, not just saving, but investing. And we'll talk about the difference. So just taking a step back, and I'm recognizing how much time we have, 25. I often think about where do we learn about investing? Where do we learn about saving, etc. And many of us we didn't have the opportunity to talk about this at our dinner table. We didn't talk about assets and liabilities, leverage, Microsoft were there long ago, Pepsi Cola stocks. We may have talked about grocery shopping, but we didn't recognize that we were feeding into a system that made profits for an organization in which we could own. So I always like to say, recognize that we may not have had these conversations in the past, but that does not mean we are excluded from incorporating them in our regular conversation and how we decide to show up and invest in ourselves and invest in our families and the world going forward. Lastly, wealth building is a skill, it's not a secret. So there are great opportunities and resources that I will share so that you don't have to think this session is one that you have to re-listen to and re-listen to, but there's other opportunities for you to gain more knowledge and comfort around the topics. So when I think about my relationship with building wealth and money, I had a scholarship from Smith. I had student loans, I had student debt, and then I also had a summer job responsibility. I knew I had to contribute in some way, and usually it was a specific number, so that I could afford to go to Smith after the summer was over. So we recognize we come from all different backgrounds. However, when we think about money, it's always been a part of life. So I always like to start with the point of what's the foundation of wealth. So it's how do you spend? How do you save? How do you invest? And then overall, how do you protect what you build? And when you have, in my case, I'm one of three daughters. When you have family members who may not have had the experience to sit down and say, okay, Ka'Neda, this is how you do it. You put your money in your 401k, you open up a brokerage account, and you invest in an index fund, look at your fees. If you don't have someone to sit down that you trust, number one, to do that, you may find that you're searching first for a trustworthy source. Secondly, trying to know what questions to ask. And then third, when do I change things? When do I start? How do I get started? So my goal today is to give you the next step. Budgeting is a lot of discipline, which takes time in some cases, but investing and knowing where and what to do with that is another level, in my opinion. So when we think about spending, having a good budget, it's always number one. Thinking about saving consistently, if you're a professional already, or you're working into, if you're a senior, junior, so moving into that space, you want to think about as you're negotiating, how can I make sure my contribution to my retirement accounts, meaning what you put in, your contribution, is matched? And one company may match you 6%, another may match 9%, plus an additional stock option. Those are real dollars. It's not just your base salary, but it's those components as well. So make sure you understand the full picture. Consistently saving your retirement account is many people say the first step that you should take, but not waiting is also really important. Invest strategically. I think that some may feel when I start investing, I need to know everything. That's simply a very, very high standard to have for yourself, and it often delays action. So if I were someone who was comfortable with the markets, yeah, sure, do a lot of research, make yourself comfortable. But if you are starting an S&P 500 index, an index fund of dividend paying stocks are going to be probably your best first step. It's not your final step, it's the best first step. So when I think about this, it's one journey that you'll have to give yourself a lot of grace around. And the reality is I have brilliant clients that come and sit before me, and I'm sure I would not understand fully their role if they explained it to me. We all have different talents for a reason. So it's not something that you should feel like you should have known already. Clients who have sat across from their father who's read the Wall Street Journal from them to them since they were five still have challenges. So it's just something you want to give yourself grace with as you learn, but do not delay action because time is really money. Okay. So when we think about budgeting and living below your means, it's many people don't like the term budgeting. I say cash flow, but truly, what are your income? What's your income? What are your expenses? Avoiding lifestyle inflation, meaning I can live off of credit cards to do the extra things that I prefer to do. That's a danger zone. So being able to make sure you have a list of your income, whether I have a full-time role or part-time, extra income that I derive from just doing things that I love that I'm good at, side hustle, some people call it, have a goal for that money. Is it going to help you just have a cushion for a trip you're dreaming of taking? Or is it going to contribute to your investment account? But literally write it down, put it in a note, or have some type of document online or that you're keeping track of. But you want all of your money to have a purpose, even if it's fun money. I don't know what I want to do with this one day money, but have it have a goal. Investing is a long-term plan, but it doesn't have to be long term, 6+ years. So I'll share very personally about my journey with wealth. My goal for my husband and I was for every child we had to have a home. We want each of them to say, this is for Bella, that's for Madison, and I'm expecting now, so that's for EJ. And then we want one of our own because we recognize ownership in this country, in the States, is very important. There are tax benefits. And if I can intentionally have my child inherit a home without debt, then I feel that that's one contribution that I have not only given them, but prayerfully have implanted that seed that they'll do the same. So we'll put one house in trust. But, thinking about these things, it was a dream. I grew up in a single family home. My mother didn't own her home initially, she owned it eventually, but it wasn't something I saw. So it was exposure that helped me guide myself through, and then my partner, Eric, through the thought of what if? How can we build this? Why is this important? And how do we teach our children that love and joy at home is first the most important, and then it's building these other things. Okay. So we let me know if this is a little challenging to read, but I'll go through each of them anyway. So we think about what financial matters do you need to know after Smith? Student loans is quite large, but I believe that has changed quite a bit. However, if anyone is approaching graduate school or in or around law or med or other types of schooling, loans is something you should be aware of. I always ask, what's your interest rate? What is the term? So knowing how much you owe initially, and then how much you will owe in the end after everything is paid off is really important to know. Because life will happen in the moments of I have this loan and then I have another mortgage and I have children. Money demands will constantly be something we'll kind of talk about. So it's important to think about all these categories. Retirement accounts, that's 401k, 403b if you're often an educator in the healthcare field or even sometimes municipal public service. Always start right away. Don't delay. Soon as you're eligible, start with whatever you can afford. 1%, 2% of your income is what you put away for the full year. And the goal is to increase once every year until you get to at least 10 to 15%. And your employer match, if you put in 5%, they put in 5%. That helps you get further along to that 15% goal. And as you reach and exceed that 15% goal, I say pause, stop there. We want you to get your match, but then also think about how are you building wealth outside of retirement? Because you want to live a great life before you retire too. So some people, I hear their goal is to max out, and you have to look up some of these terms. Max out your 401k plan or your 403b plan, and that's 24,500 if you're under 50. But I say if you don't have an account, an investment account, you're putting all of your money in a account that's helping you with taxes, but you have very restrictive assets, access to that money. So I would love for you to build flexibility in your life. So we'll talk about that as well, but something to think through. Life insurance, often through your employer. Emergency fund is something you want to build and have at least 3 months of expenses for. And I have no or low non-real estate debt. So pay off the credit cards. Work to really aggressively pay them off. And I know it's hard. Interest rates are very high, but think about it. It's someone's job to get you to spend more money than you can afford to pay back because they earn so much with interest rates because you can't pay your bill for the full month. And in my opinion, I've had times where we had credit card debt. It's nothing to be ashamed of, but you have to be really intentional about paying it off over time. Put a plan together, 2 years, 3 years, but don't think it's too overwhelming to address. Okay. Health insurance, HSA and, oh, I have to change that. HSA and FSA. They're two different things. The HSA, Health Savings Account, versus your FSA, another term, you just throw in a AI tool and it'll give you the difference. But I really like HSA accounts so we can begin building wealth. You don't have to use it by the end of the year. It doesn't go away, and you can always have that available even through and beyond your retirement years for health expenses. All right. So I'll be moving a little quickly, but this is going to be shared with everyone here so that you can become comfortable with these terms. And when you're faced with the conversation about money and investing, you don't shy away from it. You show up bold and know that you don't have to know everything, but you know where to find good information. So compound interest is the core of investing. When you think of the time you have invested in a company or a stock, or even just your cash in a high yield interest rate account, you want to start early and you want to have the ability with your emergency fund, your money tucked away, to let that money just grow. Because it doesn't just grow, it grows upon the growth that you all have already have, different than just keeping your money in a savings account. Okay. And I often say some clients that are starting off, or if you're starting off, don't look at your account every day. Don't do it. Just give yourself maybe once a month, once a quarter. But when you build in the habit of reviewing it, it's going to help you understand how things move. And I'm talking about investing now. But it can also be, an experiment with your risk tolerance. Oh, it's down. I don't feel good. My stomach is turned. But when you see the count go up, you feel really good. But the market works in cycles. So this just is a quick visual of cash, which is the line on the bottom, the blue line, investing the orange one going up. So over time, as you can see, you can't afford the same amount that you used to afford with cash. So just think if you were a Uber Eats, I just order Uber Eats for work for lunch. The cost of the expenses for ordering has gone up over time. Groceries have gone up. So we know the cost of goods always go up. So our cash, if it's not making money, will not buy us the same amount of goods as a growing portion of money would. So you do need cash. You also need to invest. It's a balance. We often, when you're learning about something, you feel more secure with cash. It's some cultures have banks that are not stable. The government can just come in and take your money and your account's at zero. So there's a culture, and I have clients that we have $50,000 here in the house somewhere. Okay, I get it. We all come from different places. But when costs rise, your money loses value. So we need to make sure we have a balance of the two. We have an emergency fund, which makes sense, but we want you to have money that's growing over time. Jump into 401k plans. So if someone has one of these plans, I really encourage you to search the definition of the plan and the limits of the plan. Because if you don't have one, you have to do this for yourself. You have to save for retirement in some capacity. And I know you have, and I as well, have different challenges. I have to save for retirement. I need to save for college. I need to save for the future tax increase that will happen in my community. I have to save because I know my family will need funds. I need to have an idea of what bucket I can access when someone else is asking me for money because they're coming across a hardship. But you have to think through, if you and your financial situation isn't healthy, it's hard for you to help someone else. So when you have an employer plan, first look at what they're matching you, MATCH, match. It may not be right away, but gradually you should meet their match and exceed their match. So you're at least taking that extra income and using it for yourself. Don't leave any money on the table. Okay. So if your match is 3%, you want to try to contribute 3% out of your paycheck every week or every 2 weeks, and they'll give you 3%, and that money is yours. So you're already at 6% of your income being saved for retirement. And you may stop there for a while, but then have other savings going to your emergency fund or your vacation fund, which might be in cash in a high yield savings account. But then you want some component of that invested too. If you have children like myself, 529s are an option, or Roth IRAs are an option too. Right. So brokerage accounts, I'm going to stick up Roths for a second. Brokerage accounts are for non-retirement wealth building. And that means I open an account, single person, individual brokerage. If you want to open it jointly, you can do that too. And I'm choosing stocks to buy, or I'm choosing a mutual fund to buy. If you're not familiar with these terms, please just research them. But it's very simple to just buy an S&P 500 index fund or a mutual fund that's global, meaning it's in the US and it's outside of the US. But just set it and forget it. Every month I contribute $100. Every month I contribute $250 if I can't afford more than that. $1,000 a month. Whatever you can afford, you want to make sure you're building non-retirement and retirement wealth, because one day you'll want to buy something that costs a lot, whether it's a down payment on a home or buying into a rental property with someone else, but you will need a sum of cash to do so. And we want that to be available for you. And I have clients who are young professionals. Fertility treatments are not inexpensive. So it doesn't have to be an asset. It can be something that's important to you, and you want to have access to monies to do so. Roth IRAs are a option for you to build tax-free income. So if you sit back and talk to anyone who really follows the stock market or cares about taxes and how much they pay, Roth IRAs are something that'll come up, because, or Roth 401ks too, because it allows you to put the money in the account before taxes are, after taxes are taken out. So that means I work, I have my salary that I am paid throughout the year, I pay my taxes, and then I invest. Or after I'm paid and goes into my savings account, I put a portion of that in a separate account called a Roth IRA. But that allows you to grow your money, invest, and when you're ready to use it, it's all tax-free. I have had some clients use this as an option to buy their first home. The Roth IRA max is about $7,000 per year. And if you're over 50, you get an extra 1,000 catch up, 1,100 catch up. So you can take that money out later and buy a home. You can use it for education, but there are certain restrictions that are around Roth IRAs and traditional IRAs that I want you to be aware of before you invest in them. So that's why I always say, give yourself flexibility. Have a brokerage account too, so that you're not limited to how much money you can access in the Roth without a penalty, or in your 401k without a penalty. All right. So this is just a view here for you to visually see, where should you start. And if you're a seasoned investor, you know you can do well above and beyond this, but it's really important to know where to start. So in your retirement account, choose a target date fund. So if I'm 20, a target date fund will basically mirror the age and year when you're 65. So if you have a target date fund, just calculate when I'm 65, what year will that be? Will it be 2060? Will it be 2065? And or much higher? But the idea is that they're going to do all the work for you. They'll make the changes, they'll make it aggressive if you're young, moderate as you get closer to retirement age. But the goal is you're not thinking about the investment piece, you're concentrating on the systematic investing, which you need to do. The second, in your brokerage account, S&P 500 index. You're going to hear me say that a lot, because it's mindless. You don't have to think about it. You'll own the largest and the medium-sized companies in the US economy, in the country. And if you want non-US you can look up a index fund of non-US large companies too. Right? So what I like to think of is making sure you're doing both. You're not just investing in the retirement account, but you're also building wealth outside. Okay. So diversification is something that you'll hear about quite often, but I like to make it simple. It's you've ever heard the story, don't put all of your eggs in one basket. So the US economy is an S&P 500 index fund. But what happens is the as the rest of the world grows. You won't take advantage of that the same way if you only invested in an S&P 500 index, which is just an index of 500 stocks. You can invest in a slice of those if you think of it that way. But if you want a non-US investment option, you're diversifying US and non-US, the global economy. But when you start, you just start with one thing, keep it simple. Okay. The other piece is just dollar cost averaging. And I'll repeat this several times. You can't expect to learn everything in this session. This is a great time to pull these terms out and do some research. But the idea here is that we are constantly investing in the market and whatever funds or investments we chose, not cash. Okay. And it's systematic. It's every week, it's every 2 weeks, it's every month. And in that time, the market will have highs and it'll have lows. So, for example, today, just before I jumped on this call, the technology selling off, meaning a lot of technology stocks are down. So, if I believe in Microsoft was down quite a bit, Meta was up the other day, I will buy those because they're on sale. But that means I'm actively doing this. So, we have the option of making a consistent buy, whatever the market's doing, up or down, or proactively buying if I see the market's down. It takes a lot of guts to do that because no one wants to feel like they may lose money. But if you think about it and you think the company will go up or the market will go back up, you're buying it on sale and your growth will be more significant. So the idea is that if you're not really ready to take that emotional roller coaster, you just dollar cost average. You invest the same pace that you had been investing, and it's automatic. It's not based on when you decide to click the button of transfer or invest. So I'll continue talking, but any questions you see that you want me to address, Christy? No? All right. So we think about managed versus brokerage accounts. Managed means you're hiring someone professionally to invest your money for you. And remember, this is non-retirement accounts. Brokerage accounts, you have a Fidelity or a Schwab or what is it called? I don't use it often, but my clients show me their accounts. Robinhood or something like that. Those are brokerage accounts. And Fidelity has all types of accounts. Actually, you can do Roth and traditional IRA, everything. But managed means you've hired someone to do it for you. Brokerage is that you're doing it yourself, or you can still have a manager, but there's a fee. There's a buy and a sell. There's a trade cost. So I want you to understand, and I have a lot of clients who came to me and said, I kind of felt uncomfortable asking the advisor how they make money or what my fees were. And I think that's rooted in an industry that just wants to consume all the knowledge and not let anyone else know. You should never be uncomfortable talking about a fee. Transparency is really important. So you always want to understand, how do you make money? What's the difference? And even if I'm paying more for the service, but I feel that you'll give me the value for the money I'm paying or the fee I'm paying, that makes sense. But if you do not know, like Robinhood, for example, I had clients who didn't think they paid any fees. I said, well, no, you do, but you have to make sure you understand the fee structure and make sure the value is there. Okay. So here, just wanted to talk about some pitfalls. We don't want to wait, and don't let perfection kind of stall you from making that next step of investing. Just start. Don't rely on credit cards to fund the lifestyle that you desire. You'll get there. Just patience and diligence, allowing you to save and invest, and you'll definitely get there. Keeping debt low. And I think this is one challenge, setting family support boundaries. So I'm terrible at that. I'm not good. All right. So I think it's important to say, what can I afford to give and not get back? Because I always think, oh, go get it back. Doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes it does. But what can you afford to give or lend and not get it back? And I am a huge fan of knowledge sharing. So if I can in some way say, okay, yes, I can loan you this money, but we have to sit down and make a budget. We have to sit down and look at where your money's going. And that's really hard to do. People will look at you as if, who are you to tell me where my money should go? But they're asking you for money. So I just think it's important to say, I know this is uncomfortable for me and it may be for you, but I want our family to be successful. And this is how I've learned you're able to be financially stable. It's making a budget and kind of being intentional about where your money goes. So try it. Financial security during transitions. Divorce happens, long-term partnerships change. We had a two-person household income, now it's one. Things shift. So I always go back to the basics when I talk to someone who is experiencing that. Emergency fund. Do you have enough if things were to just fall apart for a month or two? Can you just pull from different places and know the penalty and the consequence for doing so, but you can still access it? Having insurance, and you don't, I'm not an insurance agent that or insurance, but I'm licensed, but I don't really like over insurance. I feel like it's expensive. People don't know the fees, and there are other ways of solving for the need for insurance, but a small policy at work usually is sufficient until you've had the ability to build your emergency fund and started investing, etc. But insurance is important, life insurance. Brokerage savings, non-retirement savings, like I mentioned. Simple and clear plan. What do you want to do in the next 6 months? What do you want to do in the next year? And I literally write it out. I have clients saying, how much did you spend on vacation? Oh, I went to visit my friend here. I went there. So that's travel. That's going out to eat. That may be airfare, hotel. So track your spending so that you have a goal every year. And put that money aside by saving a bit every pay period so you don't have to worry about accumulating credit card debt. Okay, so here's a bit of a roadmap. Emergency fund, employer match, meaning if the match is 3%, get to 3%. A Roth IRA, and I would say if you have a retirement account at work, ask if they have a Roth component as well. And that would allow you to pay taxes now and not pay taxes later. And Roth IRAs are a bit different. You can have a Roth IRA as well. The main difference is you can choose what the investments are versus being given a selection of options to choose from. So you can choose whatever you basically like to invest in a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA. And once you have a certain level of income, you're no longer able to contribute to a Roth IRA. So I know many people don't realize that. They just think they can do it at any time. But if your earnings grow at a certain pace, I guarantee at one point you won't be able to contribute to a Roth. In its traditional sense, they're great backdoors and other strategies that I won't get into today. But think about the income limits. Simple investing, try to make it easy and consistent. And overall, I think having a partner in doing this, a friend that's also committed to building wealth and having financial stability, a partner, it doesn't matter who, but it's easier to do it when someone else is on the journey with you. And then where should my next dollar go? So I love traveling, but I have two children and a husband. So it's a family of four. So when we're buying and traveling, four flights, they're about as tall as I am, so they're not little ones anymore. And then the luggage, and then we usually do Airbnb because we like to cook. So all of these things, and no, we eat out quite a bit, even though we like to cook. And then we want to do adventurous traveling. We're on this excursion and that. So really think about what's important to you. And we don't like to go to the same place every time. So traveling is important to me. And we take them out of school whenever I'm at a conference in Colorado. We're all going to Colorado. So it's just until I can't help them do the homework was our rule. So the idea is that identify what's important to you. Vacation may not be important. It may be being able to spend time with your family in your current place of living. But make sure that you have an emergency fund, but also enjoy life. You can't just save and not do anything. Home purchase might be a priority. Have a separate account for your home purchase. You want a rental property, have a separate home for your rental property. My husband wants to buy a boat, so we set up a fund for his boat. He has a boat license and everything. So it's okay to dream and want to have different experiences. I just listened to, and this is a completely side note, a note about a woman speaking of limitations and talking about feeling guilty for dreaming and wanting the experiences she hadn't had the opportunity to have as a child. And I completely understand that feeling. So when I talk about these things, I kind of feel weird because I want those things, but it was never a part of our conversation. So you often feel as if, who am I to think of wanting these? It's you deserve it. Do it. I want to buy rental property in different countries. All of those things are attainable. And when you think about how to get there, it's just a strategy. So, what else are you saving for? Summer camp is very expensive. So, for me, I have a summer camp fund so that we know this is our budget, girls. You're either going to work with mommy or you're going to daddy's camp, or we have this specialty camp. But it's something we know is coming, so we save for it. But we don't do it in cash. It's a high yield savings account. We really try to reduce debt and eliminate it as well as if possible. With high interest rates, I've seen 30%, 29, etc. Coming back to again to that employer match, Roth IRA, make sure you're thinking about where should your dollar go next. Okay. So these are a few resources that you can just take a quick picture of. And there are others. Absolutely. I like napkin finance a lot. It's really interesting. And I would love once we ask for questions that people feel free sharing what other resources they find helpful. So just summarizing where we were, you're building a new legacy is how I look at it. It may not be a path that you have viewed someone else walk, but it's helpful if you see a lifestyle that someone you know that has a lifestyle that you love or enjoy. How did you get there? Ask them. What decisions did you make that helped you get to where you are today? What decisions did you make that you wish you hadn't? You have to be confident in asking because people are willing to share their stories. And if they're doing things you love and you would love to do, why not? And the success is generational. You're not making a change just for yourself, but it's your family. I look at my nieces. When I was young, I had a 529. I had no children, no partner or spouse, but I knew one day I would have to pay for college and I would want to pay for college. It would be a privilege for me to do so for my child. So I started putting money in a 529. So it's a path that you may have that's different from your families, but it's definitely a path that you can make. So these are my social media QR codes. We do a lot of videos and a lot of content, and you have to be a life learner. These things change. Bitcoin, other types of currency, gold are getting a lot of questions for all these things, but think of the long term. You want to have diversification and you want to be committed to your goals. So finally, let's go. Let's make sure we're intentional, we work in community, and if we fall off of our path or get distracted, we don't feel bad about it, but take a moment to pause and reassess and get back on. All right, that's all I have.
Awesome. Thanks, Ka'Neda.
You're
If you'll pop
welcome.
your slides down really quickly.
Sure. Mhm.
Um, so we have one question that
Okay.
I think is a bit of a more tactical one, and then we have two that I'm actually going to hold for the end, so you and
Okay.
Layla can both respond to it.
Mhm.
But there is just one question, and I had the same thought. What's the high yield savings account
Okay.
you recommend? Are there specific ones you like? Because I'm going home and opening one.
Thank you. Yes.
So what? But this came from Shayla.
Okay. All right. Sure. So just to talk about the differences, high yield savings accounts. the banks, PNC, Bank of America, the traditional banks you hear of, they have savings accounts, which you can look at your statement or look online. They pay usually less than 1%. So they also have money market accounts, which usually give you a higher yield, meaning if you put $100 in, you make less than 1% or you make 4%. Which one do you want? You want the 4%. So, in contrast, the money markets have requirements. You have to have 5,000, 20,000. They have rules. So, there was an industry that came about and created high yield savings accounts. No minimum. You can have $2 there. You can take your money out whenever you want. There are less restrictions, but you get a higher yield. Your money is making more money for you while you're just letting it sit and be saved for summer camp, for example. All right. So when you think about, just do the math. $1,000 making 1%, $1,000 making 4%. You want the 4%. So there are many high yield savings companies. I personally use Ally, ALLY.com. I have a lot of clients that use Capital One 360 because they have the credit card. Some that use Marcus, which is a Goldman Sachs product. There's an Apple high yield saving. So just think of the rules. When I want my money, I want it in a day. How long does it take to transfer? It's not a physical, in most cases, location. It's not a bank, it's an online institution. But you want to search what's most comfortable for you. And also, they have a money market that's has very little restrictions too. So I have some clients who use that as their high yield savings account.
Great.
But I gave you about four names, but
Yeah, that's
I would
awesome.
search. Mhm.
Um, okay, perfect. And then I guess one more tactical question, and then I am going to move us over to the conversation. Cassandra's asking, emergency funds has 3 months saved, but don't know whether to continue to 6 months
Mhm.
or use the money for other options. What would and currently in CDs as they have higher rates. Cassandra, you know what you're doing, it sounds like,
Yes,
but
Cassandra. Yes, yes, yes.
this is
So I
great,
like
but
the CD. I like the CD because what happens with high yield rates, as rates nationally go down, your rates are going to go down in those high yields. So at one point, I had clients making 5% in some of these things. And then they've gone to 4, now 3.8. But you can lock in the rate for a year or two, probably at the most with a CD. But Cassandra, it's time to invest. So what I say is that as you're accumulating that fourth month of savings or fifth month, now you shift to a brokerage account. Don't really look at a bond so much, but look at maybe dividend paying companies. You can buy a mutual fund of large cap, which are the largest companies in the country, or a mutual fund of the S&P, like I mentioned. But I would start investing after you have saved that third month in cash in a high yield account. That fourth, fifth, and sixth month, it's just going to sit in cash. Your CDs will come due and you'll have to renew them. But it's time for that. And I have often tell clients moderate for that fourth, sixth, fifth, and sixth month, and then you can always access it. We don't know if the market's up or down again, but the goal is you have your nest egg in cash. It's time to move over.
perfect. Awesome. Okay, so we're going to shift gears and we're going to add Layla to the spotlight.
Mhm.
Um, we're going to do that. There we go. Awesome. Thanks, Emma. And Layla and Ka'Neda are going to have a discussion that's really rooted in the questions that you all submitted about what else you were hoping to gain from today's session. So we've got that really practical knowledge, and now we're going to have more of a conversation. And we will have a little bit of time at the end for additional questions, and I'm already holding some from the chat, but feel free to continue dropping them in. And Layla, use your best judgment, play around with the questions, and if there are others in the chat that seem more relevant, please feel free to take us there. So I'm going to hand it over to both of you now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christy. And one quick ask of you, when we're down to like the last question that I should be asking Ka'Neda, just let me know, because then we'll be opening up to the Q&A. So just so that way folks know that we're
Yeah, let's take like 20 minutes
okay.
for this, and then everyone on the screen should know to have your questions ready because we'll have a little bit more time to
Get in there,
discuss.
y'all.
Yeah.
Okay, Kanita, first and foremost, thank you so much for the download. I have in my past life been sort of like an investment professional. Happy to talk about that another time. But for the focus of this conversation, I am really trying to give voice to some of the questions that are coming from alums and students, and really asking from a place of like just an abundance of humility and like just a lack of awareness, right? And
Mhm.
so as we get into it, I want to, I guess the first question that I have is really more so around, what questions should we be asking? What should we be thinking early on in this journey of building wealth and really establishing a new legacy? There were a few that you asked that I want to sort of like put out there, right? That you mentioned, like how much can I afford? Where do I begin? Um, what do I need to do to make sure that I'm not necessarily waiting to get started, right? These are some of the
Mhm.
things that I think, as we're shifting mindsets, would love to hear how you might advise someone in terms of like getting to answers for those questions early.
Sure. So I often start with what's important to you. So we all have to kind of revert to what we think is important. So I'll start there.
Mhm.
I've always wanted to travel. I enjoy, and that's just not the States, but globally, and not just be a tourist. I want to go to different places. So I think for me, recognizing that say if my 20s 30s 40s, I'm 41 now, it's different every as time changes, or we call it life stage. So if you're starting off, you're just coming into your first role in your career, you're wanting to set up that emergency fund like we talked about, and that's for security. If something happens, I'm unexpectedly laid off, unemployment doesn't begin the next day. You have to have some gap insurance, right? That means your emergency fund needs to take you through a few months, and usually it's a couple of weeks, but you never know. So you want to have something to fall back on, but also in that, have a boundary of, I can't loan this money because that's my fallback on money. I
Mhm.
can't pay my rent. I can't pay my mortgage. I can't pay whatever is essential if I go below this number.
Mhm.
So you should have that number in mind because it'll be kind of a safe goal for you. I need to have this. And then I feel like if something happens, I can get through it. And unfortunately, of some people, that's a credit card.
Mhm.
So if that's a credit card, there's a path so that it's not a credit card, but it's cash. But
Mhm.
just recognize you have to step on that journey so that it's not a credit card, but it's cash. So start with emergency fund. And from that point on, it's how am I saving beyond emergencies? We don't want to live a life of just being able to address an emergency if it comes up. We want to live a life of being able to do more and follow our dreams, whatever they may be. So then I say retirement is another, but if you are not sold on that whole retirement deal, start with an investment account, a brokerage account, as I mentioned, but that still allows you to start with what you can afford, grow your money, and I say retirement accounts at work because it's free money if they have a match. If they don't have a match, that's a different story. So if they do not have a match, don't feel inclined to start right away with your employer plan. You can do your own, but systematic is important. Don't think about it. It has to just come out of your account, just as
Mhm.
your cell phone bill would come out of your account.
Awesome. Okay, I want to double click on and it may be like an important question, but it's like it might feel more simple, but not as clear.
Mhm.
How do I figure out like what I can afford? Like, where do I begin?
So I say, whether you like Excel or you like budgeting apps, paper and pen, best way to go. What comes into my account, not what I signed on as my salary, but what comes into my account every week, every 2 weeks, every month, dollar and cent. And what goes out of my account, dollar and cent. So that will tell you whether you're living to your means, below or above. So I did this exercise with my husband the other day, and I'm thinking, Eric, we're still paying for ABC Mouse. The kids are 10 and these subscriptions, they re-signed us up. Who knew? But the point is, if you have no idea who's taking your money, it's just gone. And then you have whatever you have left to spend. But I think a simple budget of writing it down or habit about writing things down And it's different when you have a partner because you may decide to commingle your money, keep it separate, all an independent decision. But it's not just on you. You have children, they need things when it's inconvenient. So they need things when it's convenient. So you just have to also be mindful of unexpected expenses. But writing what your income down is, totaling it up, writing what your expenses are, and totaling it up as well. And those unforeseen asks from people, asks from family, asks from children should be a part of that too. And your savings should be a part of it. So ultimately, if you're making X dollars per month, when you write down your expenses, including your savings, it should be zero. Because even your high yield savings contribution or your investment should be a part of those numbers of where your money's going. And most people like a buffer because just things happen. But I would say keep it simple. Don't get complicated until you're ready. But it's a simple exercise. It just takes discipline sitting down and doing it.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Really appreciate it. Some of the things that you're talking about really get at really building confidence, right? And getting to a place of where you feel like you've got a sense of control.
Mhm.
But with that comes like, I mean, this stuff is, it feels like the more you learn, the more there is to learn.
Yeah.
So, how do you keep from feeling like overwhelmed? What do you recommend in terms of like starting to feel like you can gain a sense of control
Mhm.
as you're doing this and really maybe not putting the cart before the horse?
And I think it's helpful to have a time, and it's some people are. I've met this woman the other day. I said, you don't realize how good you are. Most people are not this organized, but I say wherever's your happy place, whether it's once a month early, having a notebook, writing everything, and we most often have a lot of our spending on our bank app.
Mm.
So you can literally look through the month. What did I do last month? What was more, my gym membership went up and I didn't even notice. Some of those things you can't catch if you don't sit down to really look at this spending. There's an annual fee that comes around in January that
Ooh.
you forget because you pay the monthly fee. So all those little things, but you do have to have your quiet space, or if you need accountability, have that person who will say, okay, I'll read you the number, you write it down. And it's something about the exercise of writing something down that it's really ingrained. It's I'm spending that much. Do I even go to the gym? I'm just using that because I was thinking about that last night. Or you have a subscription. Do we even watch that? Do I
Mhm.
need this much in my channels? So I just feel that we spend, but it's sometimes a conversation about do we need to spend there or is it better served elsewhere?
Lovely. I love that. And it's really about one of the points that you were getting at in your presentation was this idea of being intentional, right?
Hmm.
So some of being able to build that confidence is really around like really knowing what's important to you. So to your point earlier about values, and also being able to make decisions that are aligned to those values. And
Hmm.
in the middle there, it's like intentionality, right? Really being able to make conscious choices, having the information that you need by tracking your expenses to be
Hmm.
able to get to a place of like clarity, like, oh, maybe I don't need to spend there. I could add more to the travel fund, or who knows,
Hmm.
maybe I could get some money into that 529 for the child that I have like in the future. So
Right.
that enables you, when you have more information, you can move differently and just be
Hmm.
more intentional with that. So thank you for that piece. I wanted to really quickly jump to some of the pressures, right? Some of the expectations, the boundaries, right, that we might need to set. This community is one that lives, I would say, like in a very intersectional place where there are, I would say, layers of responsibility. No one is necessarily coming at we all have been taught different things, right?
Hmm.
Whether, I mean, in my case, for example, my parents are from the Dominican Republic. There's like a whole Latina identity and a set of values that go with that. But I'm like born in America, in American. There's a New York piece to that. There's also like just the way that I show up in the world and the places and spaces that I've been in. And with those come different values and different expectations. So as we're thinking about starting, right, and this is really more focusing on starting,
Hmm.
um, how might we navigate some of like these thoughts around like having to get it right, feeling like we're the only one. If I'm not the one who gets this right, then it'll have like a ripple effect. But really just creating that grace and space for ourselves. How do we set expectations for ourselves and with others as we're doing that?
Sure. So first want to recognize we are here, right? We're all in some way related to the institution of Smith College, right? There's something about individuals that are connected, whether you're a student, you graduated, where you're still in a part of the journey, that means you have something special in you. This confidence, whether it's always there or you turn it on when it shows up, that means we can't go to our traditional places of learning for new information. So we may have to, in my industry, there's male dominated, white male dominated. A lot of my mentors are white men. So you have Ka'Neda, there's no way I'm going to show up as anyone else except me. Ka'Neda, what does that mean? Where did that come from? Like all those things. Don't ask me that. I have questions for you. So I feel like we all are going to kind of come in a room as we are, but recognize we have something to learn from people and they have something to learn from us. So in my case, I remember my mother sitting down, she would write, get her bills, and she would write paid, and she would call them or write a check. I don't pay my bills that way, but she taught me you're supposed to pay your bills. And some of them may have had to wait till we had a late charge. But it's all of those things that we were taught. And it's not to say they weren't right, they don't work anymore. But I always say it's important to kind of evaluate what you learned about money and then relearn some things that you learned about money. So my husband and I, we were dating, and I he grew up with more wealth than I did. So he spends more than I'm like, Eric, did you look, so it's you're going to come from different places, but you have to have honesty, trust, and communication. So I'd say, I'm a Black woman. My mother's from the South. She came here with my father during their migration to the North. They got married, in my opinion, like they were young. They didn't know much. So they had to struggle. They figured it out, but they didn't have a lot of savings, but she passed recently. We had an inheritance. I said, think about where she came from. And she knew enough that I inherited money. That's a blessing. That's progress. And then my children's inheritance will be different. But she taught me that you can come from very humble beginnings, sharecroppers, and have an inheritance. So from that, all of those things come with me. But I learned so much at Smith. One of my best friends, still to this day, she owned Apple while we were freshmen. I'm like, oh, what's Apple? She showed me how many shares she owned. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. So I was thankful that she and I had that relationship. And I didn't see that as, oh, you were born with this, but I'm going to have that. My daughter's going to have Apple when she's in a first year. So I feel like we have an opportunity to use this network as we all are showing up here to learn more. But where we're starting is a place of recognizing we have to have access to someone we trust to get more knowledge about the next step we want to take. And at times, our family will not know the answer. I look at my siblings. My goal was to own property, and we have great renters. And I know it doesn't work for everyone, but when they have questions, they come to me. I'm the youngest, so it's not that I can ask my older sister about, we're negotiating on this house. As I was looking at my phone, we're buying a house today, or they accepted our offer. So, it's just that I want to be able to give that information. And when I need new things and need to learn something else, it may not come from a family member, but it'll be someone else who may not think I deserve to know this, but I'm going to ask them and get my information from someone else if they're not willing to share.
Yeah, related to that, I would say, and thank you so much for sharing these gems. Because what I'll say is that you'd be surprised how, like, if you are open to asking the question, like, people are very generous
Oh
in
my
terms of like giving you the game, is what I'll call it, the game
God.
around like some of the things that they're doing and what strategies they're employing. And so, as much as you may have learned or we may have been taught that there's no place to talk about this, please do ask the questions. Right? There are even
Yeah.
places where you can ask questions anonymously if like that
Hmm.
is something that's like a challenge for you, being able to sort of like identify with what you're saying. So I want to encourage folks to learn, continuously ask questions, definitely reach out. And I like to say, personally, the way that I sort of like think about setting things up for the future is really, I'm thinking about what will the future Layla thank me for, right? And making decisions from a place of, I'm so grateful, for example, that I had that savings account, right? Or when I was very early in my career, one of the things, security was really important to me. Coming from humble beginnings, security was important to me. I needed to have more than, like, I needed to be okay for a year, and
Hmm.
I call that my, my take a walk fund, right? So that if I didn't want to feel like I was trapped at a job, right? So I had enough, and that was my main priority. But after we got to a certain point, it's just like, okay, well, what else do you value?
Yeah.
And it was through talking to mentors that I learned like what other things are important for people to value. One of the things I want to double click on though, Ka'Neda, because I think this is crucially important. Like your mentors don't necessarily look like you. My mentors don't necessarily look like me. How do we figure out who is someone that we can trust? What are the things that connote or that say to you, this is a safe space, this is someone you can open up with, this is someone who is willing to sort of like share and connect with you on that level?
Hmm. Great question. And the easy answer I'm going to say, sometimes you don't know,
Mm.
and
Just
you
that.
have to just be vulnerable and put yourself out there.
Mhm.
But if you just listen, observe, that shows you and tells you a lot of who someone is. And it doesn't mean that they have to have the answer, but that the answer may come from someone else who has the same values. So if you're observing someone, I'll just use the workplace, who is considerate of others' opinions, who listens, who doesn't immediately put someone's thoughts down, but surrounds themselves with different people, different types of thinkers. And if you are aligned to that, they more than likely will have a community of other individuals that know great information who are similar. But if what I share doesn't resonate with you, look for whoever does resonate with you and say, okay, well, that person, whether he or she or they know about this specific topic, that's not important. It's I trust their judgment.
Mhm.
And they'll say, I don't know a lot about that, but this is the person I go to when I have a question about that. Or they will know and they'll answer. But I think it starts with who that person is and do you connect with them? But observe their behavior. How do they act in front of the crowd and on the backstage? Because often those are different.
Mm.
But when you see how they behave in both of those on the screen and off camera, then you can kind of trust them. But sometimes you just don't. So you just have to put yourself out there and ask. But most often you'll have someone, or just say, who do you may not know this, but who would you recommend I talk to about this?
Awesome. I have, okay, one more question. I think maybe it's time to pivot to the Q&A, to the open Q&A from folks that are
Mhm.
coming, right? Is that right,
Yeah.
Christy? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so one piece, since you mentioned this in both your presentations just recently, one of the things that I think is different about this financial wellness and sort of like setting yourself up for success in this space, particularly at a time where you might be transitioning from school to career, or where you are like in your first role, or
Mhm.
maybe at any point in life, is really that it's highly individualistic, right? Whereas everywhere else in life, there's like a lot of community, people are open.
Mhm.
How do you surround yourself, right? How do you find people? How do you do this in community, if there's a way to do that, so that it's less of an isolating experience? And so we can really compound, right,
Mhm.
the benefit of learning from each other at an accelerated pace.
Mhm. And that is a really challenging journey because it does come with a lot of cultural expectations.
Mhm.
So many people don't talk about money, but with their family. So I'm pretty sure you're not talking about it with other extended family members. So it may be a new group of friends, but then are you all starting from the same place? So they don't have much to share. But I always say it's a journey. I had credit card debt, I had student loans, I made poor money decisions. We partied and went out and probably overspent on dinner when I didn't have enough on my budget. So whoever told you they always had it right, they're not telling you the truth. So first you have to know that you desire this, right? There's an end goal here, and then you figure it out along the way. But I'd say most often you are going to find that the communities change. So you may have your first stage of community. I'm in school. These are individuals who are similar in their current experience, but you should also have individuals who are not similar in their experience. So you can learn what the next step may look like, right? I had friends with student loans, I had friends without student loans. So how are they moving differently? But what the core was is that, again, a values piece that was connected between all of them. And then once we graduate, I went into finance. So I was immediately making really great income. Some went into different fields where they weren't. So it's even though we all were at Smith, graduate, there were then different things I needed to ask that they didn't understand or weren't experiencing. So I would say every stage, your community shifts. However, you don't disregard them or change. You still have that share because they're helping you stay committed to whatever path you're on. But you do have to be open to letting more people in that community. And it feels a little uncomfortable at times, I'll admit. But it's you will come around to and it'll take time, but you'll come around to say, okay, these are people I trust. So I can be more vulnerable with them and say, how did you do that? Because I'm struggling here. And or do that and say, oh, that wasn't the right person to ask. So let me just sit back for a second and find new community. But it is a evolving process, and it's not always the same. And people say you get this group, oh, we're, great, we're doing well, we give time, we teach our children, and then something changes, right? Oh, I notice this is a big piece that we're not aligned anymore. So then how do I still open myself up to accept new people in my community? To then That's hard. That is tough, especially when it comes to
Work.
money, because it becomes to intimacy.
Yeah.
Your partner, how are they influencing your decisions? It's not easy work, but it over time it changes. But
Yeah.
you still have that core group of people that encourage you. It's okay, you're gonna get through it. But it is important that you are comfortable knowing that different people will become a part of your community in different ways.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. And one thing that two things that I like to sort of like remind myself and other folks
Mhm.
is whether you are sort of like with the same group of folks and you're sort of like all like moving at the same time, or you're inviting new people in, or it's like a revolving door, right? Whether it's any of those groups, you will be doing the work, right? And so you can make an intentional choice about
Mhm.
who you're doing this work with and
Right.
how you're doing this work.
Mhm.
And you'll find that like if you have a similar goal, okay, so maybe I just met this girl who, or this young man who, or this person who is interested in like vacationing more. We have a similar goal, and so the natural conversations that we'll have, how we're
Mhm.
trying to get at that goal, is going to just be like we'll be able to go deeper, more
Mhm.
quickly, and sort of like I like to use the analogy of like a house.
Mhm.
If we're talking about the house of traveling, we'll be able to go into more rooms in that house much faster, right? Than just
Mhm.
maybe staying in the living room of like, I've got this goal of traveling. So just want to put that out there. Okay, we can go on forever. Looking at the time,
Literally.
I know you're off mute. Keep us accountable
Mhm.
here. Christy,
Mhm.
where are we going?
I I am going to keep you accountable. I actually just want to also call out something that may feel very obvious in the moment, but I just want to note that if folks on this call are thinking about who they can turn to ask these questions, right? First of all, you showed up today, which is a great first step.
Mhm.
But Ka'Neda and Layla are just two examples of folks within your Smith community who are literal experts in these areas. And Ka'Neda, one question that I know I had as a young kind of first gen professional coming out into the world, what do you need to have? Or, when you're approaching a financial advisor, like are there limits to how much money you need to be like who can you turn to? Who do you need to be before you can take that step? Like, who are your options if you want to have a real, like, person-to-person conversation? I'd love to hear a little bit about that. Um, yeah. And Layla, what are your thoughts? Just to kind of go off of the kind of community question that we're having right now.
So just for regarding financial advice, and there are, okay, the industry is really set up for earning an income and high net worth. Everyone's like, oh, high net worth individual, that's their client. They want $1 million minimum. But
Mm.
you will find advisors that do not believe that that is the best business model because you're leaving out a large group of people who are in need. And they may become, right, the $1 million minimum client that you have, but if they're not getting good advice, it's a challenge and a struggle to get there. Not that they won't, but it's not as easy. So we have, we call it financial education and planning, where it's a different model, but it's designed for us to have the opportunity to work with clients who don't have it all figured out, but are committed to doing so and recognize it's a partnership. Time is money, guys. So thinking if we're sitting down, I want to know that you're in this for real. So there are other business models like that. There are other advisors who are just like that. They don't charge exorbitant fees and they don't have high minimums, but they want to work with not so young professionals and other professionals, but people who are just committed to being great stewards of their money. And I would say we're in this great journey with technology, and that there's so much information on reputable companies' websites. Reputable is important. So, watching videos from Fidelity, even the federal government has some pretty good content. They have PowerPoint slides and everything. But it's really just looking at how do you find that knowledge and find the information and then be consistent about figuring out how it works for you. And even
Right.
I know Chad or Gemini, they make great financial plans, but it's just the accountability.
Mhm.
As I said, my role can never be replaced by a robot because
Mhm.
no one understands. My sister is going through a divorce and her children may be out of a home. And I need to do, like, the bot's not going to get that.
Yeah.
Emotionally connecting to a human is not going to be replaced. But there's some great ways to stick to a plan that can be generated online.
Awesome. And so it's not limited. There are options for people at any
Absolutely.
wealth level, and just trying to figure that out is part of the journey.
Mhm.
Um, One question that came in the chat for both of you, do you have guidance on investing in ways that align with your values?
Mhm. I'm
Anita,
gonna
you-
let Layla talk on that
Oh, okay, I can. All right, sure.
one.
So, yeah, I gave the example, right, of like how it was important for me at the beginning. And I should say that I got really lucky. There was a financial planner who reached out to me when I was like 23. He and I are still connected. And so he's been my go-to, recognizing that I had a gap, that I couldn't necessarily speak to my parents, and that there were some cultural pieces that I needed, I would say, support in terms of like breaking some of the mentality. He was really helpful in terms because we had an alignment in terms of like our cultural backgrounds and upbringing. When it comes to investing, and this is not investment advice, at least not on my side, because I'm not licensed to give that advice. So I'll speak more on the like how to think about it. And Ka'Neda, you can speak more tactically to like what that looks like in terms of like the decisions that you can make. But for me, it's really thinking about the things that matter most important to me and voting with my feet essentially. So like if I'm someone who really cares about like education, who really cares about first gen professionals, who really cares about think companies that have a pledge to like being green and being responsible in terms of their use of like certain technologies, then I can construct a portfolio, or I can speak to someone like Ka'Neda about, hey, look, these are the things that are priority for me. I want the investments that we make to reflect these priorities. And you can hold someone like Ka'Neda accountable and say, hey, look, can you show me where we are making investments in these particular areas because I want to contribute to the growth in this area. And what you're also doing is saying there are certain things that I'm not going to invest in. There are certain things that I don't want to be aligned with, right? But really, it comes down to like knowing what is most important to you. For me, it was more so creating optionality, right? So I'm someone who really cares about, like I said, education. I'm someone who really cares about like alternative investments in the sense that like I want to be able to invest in the things that like my friends are building, right? So I went to business
Mhm.
school, people are building companies. So there's a different aspect of investing, like in private equity, for example, and or venture capital, which is more, I would say, speculative. And that's really me saying, I've got this pool of cash or money that I really just want to make bets on people, right? And that's entirely like my preference. That's entirely like who I know, how I've seen them build the thing, whether I believe in their ideas. And sometimes you win and sometimes you lose, right? But if I like to also tell people like if you want to win, you have to learn how to lose, right? And learn how to learn from the things that like from when you lose, and just don't make the same mistake twice, right? So anyway, so that's what I'll say in terms of like aligning to your values. I think everything that you do in terms of like how you invest can be 1000% aligned to your values, and you
Mm.
with people or really just make these conscious choices along the way. Very easy.
Mhm.
Anita.
Yeah, I think that really comes back to your focus on intentionality, right? And also taking ownership over doing that research and understanding what companies are doing and how that does or does not align with your values. And if that's really something that is critically important to you, maybe I don't know all the terminology, but maybe one of those funds that's just a million different things that you never see isn't the right spot to be putting your money, right?
Right.
So, but Kanita, please, what your perspective?
And I would say it's a balance because it's hard to do that when you're trying to invest in your retirement account, right? They're going to
Mm,
have the traditional large cap, mid cap, small cap, you know. So you have to know there will be opportunity to do that and then how to find those opportunities. But I also come back to you have to, like you said, do your research, but also have a threshold. You know, you have a risk appetite. I always say, my youngest, there's no risk without, no reward without risk, risk without reward. So you have to make sure you know you what you can risk, what you can't risk. So that having the opportunity to invest in friends or invest in businesses that are entrepreneurial initiated and then they're moving to the next level, that's a great opportunity to earn and grow significantly. But then also, most don't survive. So just know what you can afford to lose. And then, hey, like you said, Layla, what did I miss? Right? What numbers were off? What questions should I have asked
Mhm.
that I didn't ask before? But
mm,
just being aware of where you can take risk and where you can't. And that changes over time too.
awesome.
Mhm.
Well, we have 2 minutes left. I want to take a moment to just thank both of you for this wonderful presentation. I was taking notes, pages of notes. I'm going to go home, figure my life out, apparently. But this was so incredibly helpful. I hope folks on the call also really enjoyed the time together. I want to mention a couple things before we leave. I do want to mention that Layla will be back on February 12th. Speaking of more opportunities to connect with folks and ask questions and get more information on this topic, Layla will be hosting a drop-in coaching session on February 12th. Um, we will drop the link for that session in the chat. And we will look forward to seeing folks join us. And this will just be more time and space to have these kinds of conversations, ask questions, get support. Um, the other thing that I want to mention, we talked about community building. We have a tool here at Smith designed to help you tap into your Smith network, and that is the Smith Network platform. So we're also going to drop a link to that in the chat. And I encourage you, log in. We have free access to LinkedIn Learning for every Smith alum. This is a huge resource for you in leveling up your financial literacy. There are so many tools there that you can take advantage of. So really, I encourage you to log into the network, claim access to your LinkedIn Learning account. Continuing education, lifelong learning can happen. You also have the network of Smithies to tap into through that same tool. So just, leverage this tool to your benefit, especially in this scenario. We want you also to continue sharing information with us about how you'd like to connect with Smith, right? We invited you today. You have self-identified as first gen professionals. We want to be able to continue offering content that is targeted towards aspects of your identity. And you can share that information with us through the Smith Network. You can keep that private just between us, or you can opt to share it more publicly so other folks will know that when they're reaching out to you, they're reaching out to someone who shares some element of their identity. Um, we're really hoping to be able to offer more curated content like this to members of our community. So, those are just a few things I wanted to call out. I am going to send a follow-up email to everyone who registered for the call. So, you will have access to Ka'Neda's slides, contact information for Layla. I'll put in these links that I'm mentioning and other resources that we talked about in the chat and discussion today. But really, I hope you're leaving today feeling like you've learned a lot. You feel like you have gained some confidence, and you also have a group that you know you can turn back to when you'd like to re-enter this conversation. So thank you all for being here today. And
Before
Ka'Neda
we
and Layla,
close, I just want to say
yeah,
one last thing. So I just was reading through the comments as you were talking, and I
yeah.
love Angela's note about how legacy and generational wealth doesn't always connect to the knowledge. So I always say it's great to inherit assets, but it's better to inherit knowledge because then you can figure out life when life happens. And I would say as we are learning these things, we have to pass it to the next generation,
Mm,
whether that's our nieces, nephews, communities, children, because this education and knowledge will help them navigate as the money management field changes. And it's great to have things given to you. It's easier, but when you're on your own, you have to learn how to stand up on your own 2 feet. So the assets without the knowledge is really a disadvantage.
mm,
So I
mm.
definitely kind of go back to that as well, and where we should teach someone else, the information we've learned here today. And it's funny, the best friend I told you about, she and her wife are coming to me as if they're a financial advisor. So, it's just interesting how that exposure and me thinking at Smith, oh, she has all this that it was figured out, and it's not necessarily that case.
Thanks, Kanita. Well,
Mhm.
thank you for sharing knowledge with us today that we
Sure.
can, like you said, pass on to others, and Layla
Mhm.
for hosting us and facilitating the discussion. And we hope to see all of you back on February 12th for our next session. And everyone take really good care.
Thank you.